admission is a modest £8 per person, or £12 for a family. And if you sign up today, you'll get an extra 3 months free membership. Seriously, we need your membership. Not just your money. We are able to make a bit of an impact in Barnet and outside Barnet sometimes, because we have a good core membership, often with lots of skills and things which they bring to bear and help us in doing things like responding to the issues that we'll be talking about this evening. I don't know how many students here tonight, by the way. We did put out an invitation for local schools. We were rather hoping we might see a few students, but if you want to stay and give me to, that's fine. Is anyone here from the press, just out of interest? No one letting on? Okay. We've got 13 prospective councillors, and Nick Jones in a moment will ask you to introduce yourselves. I'll just finish by saying that this is your chance to ask questions, air your ideas and concerns about Chipping Barnet, by which we mean the constituency of Chipping Barnet, in particular the 3 wards that we cover territorially, High Barnet, Underhill and parts of Oakley. We will be focusing pretty strictly on those areas. We know there's lots and lots of national and London-wide issues that we could talk about, but we won't have time because we've got 3 topics to cover, and we must be finished by 8:45 when the Barnet Society has a meeting of its own. The 3 topics will be housing, transport and town centres. Now that's in practice going to probably be a lot about the High Street just here, but it also could include, if you wish, questions about the new Barnet town centre, because that's also part of our territory. We overlap with the East Barnet Residents Association on issues like that. And now I'd like to introduce our Master of Ceremonies, Nick Jones. He's a former chair of Barnet Society. He's also a former BBC TV reporter. Back in the days when they paid people sensible salaries, I think, Nick, isn't it? Over to you.
Over to me. Right, well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming out. It's really heartening to see such a wonderful turnout. We'd asked for 100 chairs, not thinking that we would fill them, and fill them very well. This, of course, is a very important political moment. We've got a fantastic array of candidates here. Just to sort of make us all aware of what's happening, of course, we are very shortly going to be in the run-up to the council elections on May the 3rd. There are 32 London boroughs, all up for re-election, and of course here in the London Borough of Barnet we've got candidates for you to answer your questions from the High Barnet and Underhill wards, and we're hoping for some very lively discussion. Now Robin Bishop, who is our chair, is going to lead into the first area for discussion, which is going to be housing, and of course that's a very, very topical issue, bearing in mind the targets which the London Borough of Barnet has been set for new housing in the next decade. So Robin, why is housing so important?
Nick, 3 years ago, Barnet set itself the target of delivering 27,000 new homes by 2025, mainly in major developments in the west of the borough, such as West Hendon and Colindale. Is currently more or less on track to meet this target. In 2016, the population of the Barnet Society's patch, that's High Barnet, Oakley, Underhill, was around 47,500. In those wards, nearly 1,400 new homes had either already been given planning permission or were currently expected by the planners over the next few years. To meet London's housing crisis, however, the Mayor of London proposes to increase Barnet's annual target by 1/3. If our wards take their share of Barnet's new target, we can expect another 1,900 or so homes by 2025. That's a grand total, if you add those 2 figures I just mentioned together, of approximately 3,300 new homes. That's roughly equivalent to 5 more Brook Valley Gardens. Brook Valley Gardens being that the former Dollis Valley estate area down on Mays Lane. Now, assuming an average of 2.5 people per unit, that's 8,000 new residents in our area, an increase of 17% since 2016. But that's not all. The Mayor of London's draft London Plan, which is out for public consultation until Friday next week, proposes to abolish current limits on the density of new developments, house conversions, extensions, or garden infill within 800 metres, about half a mile, of transport hubs or town centres. That's almost everywhere that we live in our 3 wards, out as far as the Dulwich Valley, Whalebones, Hadley Highstone and Hadley Wood. Except for the Wood Street and Monk and Hadley conservation areas, where density will remain under a degree of control because they're conservation areas. As sites elsewhere in Barnet are either built out or found too costly for housing, developers will be increasingly drawn to our area, unless Barnet introduces its own controls. Since our council recently began the process of revising our local plan, it has the perfect opportunity to do that. It's vital that our newly elected councillors take responsibility for Barnet's plan and don't leave it all to Mayor Khan or our planners, which is why we've invited you to put questions directly to your candidates in the election 10 weeks from now.
Right, and now while you're thinking up the first questions, let's run down this table, this tremendous lineup of candidates, and we'll start at the far end with the Labour candidates. If you just introduce yourselves, please, very briefly, and say who you are, and where you're standing, or whatever you'd like to say. Quickly run down the table, please.
Hi, Paul Lemon, Labour Party candidate in High Barnet. Thanks.
We have got a microphone. That's my first failing, isn't it? I should have given you... It's working. You just carry on and hand it down, please.
Sorry for those who didn't hear that. My name is Paul Lemon. I'm the Labour Party, or one of the Labour Party candidates in the High Barnet ward.
Good evening. My name is Amy Beckman, and I'm also standing in High Barnet ward for Labour.
Good evening and welcome everyone. It's great to see so many people here. My name is Paul Edwards. I'm a councillor in Underhill and I'm standing again for the council in Underhill. Thank you. Which party?
Is it
I'm the Labour Party, of course.
I am also a Labour councillor for Underhill ward. My name is Jess Brain. I was elected in a by-election on the same day as Sadiq Khan.
Hello, my name is Angie Balendra and I'm standing as one of the candidates for High Barnet. For Labour Party.
I'm Simon Cohen. I'm campaigning with the Liberal Democrat Party. I'm a prospective candidate for the Liberal Democrats in High Barnet.
Good evening, my name is Duncan MacDonald. I'm also standing for the Liberal Democrats in High Barnet.
My name is Ken Rowland. I'm an independent candidate. I live locally. I've been active civically for about 6 years, and I think it's about time that they need a little shake-up in the council.
I'm Charles Wicksteed, Green Party. I'm Charles Wicksteed, Green Party, High Barnet.
Hi, I'm Obi. That's Raymond Obedential, and yes, I won.
Green Party.
Oh, sorry, Green Party.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Longstaff, and I'm a councillor for High Barnet for the Conservatives. I'm standing again this year. I also chair the Chipping Barnet Town team, as well as a governor of Fold School and a trustee of the Eleanor Palmer Trust. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Laura Akindeji. I'm a Conservative candidate for the Underhill ward. I'm not a seasoned politician. I'm just simply a wife and a concerned mother. I grew up on the estate, moved to Bedford Avenue, and I'm here to, I guess, shake up things.
I'm going to shake things up. My name is Julian Tier, and I'm a Conservative candidate in High Barnet.
Good. Well, thank you very much for that wonderful lineup. Now, who would like to kick on the questions? What I thought we'd do is we'd take a couple of questions and then ask each party to reply. We're kicking off with housing. Yes, it's the housing question. Good. Off you go.
I'd like to ask how many properties in Barnet are unoccupied, and are these being considered as part of the housing quota?
Thank you very much. Another question, please, to kick us off on housing. Who'd like to ask another question? Yes, right over here, just coming to you. We'll get to you straight away. Up we go. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'd like to know, in light of the development over the road from us in Elmbank, are similar developments going to be planned for the Green Belt, which butts up to our roads?
Good. Well, there are two quite critical questions. We'll start with the Conservatives. What about the development that is planned for High Barnet, and what about the empty road? So what's the Conservatives' position on housing at the moment? Who'd like to reply? David.
Thank you very much. To go to the first question, yes, we are looking at empty properties completely, and there are. As I've walked around a lot of Arkley and Hadley Highstone and indeed down in St Albans Road, there are a vast number of properties that have absolutely nothing in them. There's no furniture, there's no people, and they've been empty for quite some time. And certainly this is a big problem, and the council is looking at what they can do within the law, and one of them is to increase the council tax on wholly empty properties, and this is something that has been done in Europe and indeed further afield. So it is something that we can look at. In terms of things like Elmbank wasn't actually Greenbelt land, it was brownfield site. So yes, we will do absolutely everything to stop brownfield developments, stop Greenbelt developments. We did oppose the developments down in Underhill that were off Maze Lane, which other people did support on the council, on the Labour Party. We oppose all Greenbelt developments of housing as far as we can within High Barnet, and it's something that is going to increase. With this London plan, you will see more and more people coming forward with ideas, thinking that now that supposedly you can just support you're almost forced to support them through the draft London plan. We will defend the Green Belt to the end and oppose everything as far as we can.
Thank you very much. The Liberal Democrats, sorry, if you pass it down, please, it's to the Greens.
Hi, I'm Obi again. What about the empties? There's actually no figures about the High Barnet itself. The last ones we found back in 2008 was supposed to be 2,800 for the whole of Barnet as empty, long-term empty, sorry. And 2011 there was something about 3,400, but they couldn't actually say which wards these empty houses were in. Well, when we were defending West Hendon and Streets Way, when the current council was decanting all 143 families, we did point out that there were all these houses empty, but then of course they said no, we can't actually do anything about it. Apart from what I got, there is actually a law which states that if a property has been long-term empty, they can actually be taken over by the council and then rented out. And of course, that money would be given to the property owners. As for the Green Belt, well, we are the Green Party, so we would defend the Green Belt. Also, we would defend any places like parks, which are actually good for the local community. We would also defend that from being changed from a green belt site to a brownfield site, which has been happening in Barnet for a while now. So,
thank you, Toby. The Liberal Democrats, please. No, sorry, Ken. Did you want to? I beg your pardon, Ken Rowland, Independent. Did you want to say something on housing, or do you want to hand it on to the Lib Dem?
No, I will say something. At the risk of making this sound flippant, you've probably heard of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I would be Arthur Dent. I would be lying on Hadley Common, stopping the bulldozers. Empty houses, I think it's criminal in the same way that I think it's criminal that businesses, shops on the high street remain empty. We need to take more action on these sort of, whether it's residential or business. Too many people need to use them.
Good, thank you very much, Eddie. Now the Liberal Democrats, I apologise.
Thank you. With empty properties, I think the main thing we need to look at is obviously using the council's existing powers to bring those back into uses as quickly as we can and making sure that happens. Also, a lot of properties we have a problem where you have absentee owners or landlords often out of the country, and so trying to find out who actually owns the properties is a major issue, and actually getting action. So we need to make sure that that is happening. As far as development goes, I mean, that's been an issue for a long time in this area of overdevelopment, where we're finding infill development and new developments that are, you know, in terms of architecturally and planning terms, are very poor quality, and so we need to look, you know, there will always be development. We need to make sure that is high quality development, appropriately sized, and that we have the facilities to actually support those developments in terms of the services that they rely on. That's critical, and that's a role the council has to take a more active role in managing.
Thank you very much indeed. Now the Labour Party.
I'm going to talk about Elmbank, and I'm going to pass over to Amy to deal with the empty properties. But can I start off by saying Elmbank is something that we in the Labour Party opposed. As a councillor, and Amy was a councillor with me in Underhill when the Linden Homes first approached the Labour councillors in Underhill to talk about that development once the health service had sold the property to them. And we were insistent that what we needed in Elmbank were properties for people who would normally be in what we call social housing or live in council houses. I grew up in a council house, I have no problem with that. We have loads of people who can't afford to live in Barnet anymore, and we need to do something about the housing crisis that exists. It's about affordability, and it's simply not good enough for the Conservatives to say we do our best. In fact, they don't do. They've caved in to developers left, right, and centre all over this borough. The amount of affordable housing is non-existent. And we'll come back to that if there's any more questions on housing. It's absolutely disgraced the level of. There's no affordable housing. People sitting in this room, like myself, I came to live in Barnet over 30 years ago. I couldn't afford to buy the house that I now live in. My wife and I are still working, and we couldn't afford to buy the place where we live today. And that's the crisis that we have, the lack of affordable homes, really affordable homes, which under the Conservatives, that's 80% of market value. That's not affordable. So we can come back to that. Now in terms of the green belt.
Are you going to deal with the...
I'm going to deal with the green belt, and then Amy's going to deal with the empty properties. The green belt, let's make it very, very clear, Labour will not build on the green belt. I want to make that clear now, despite any fake news you may have heard. We're not going to build on the green belt, and we've always consistently opposed building on the green belt. And if anybody passes building applications of planning committees to build on the green belt, it's the Conservatives. And I'll give you one example. The Ark Academy in Underhill is on the green belt.
You're absolutely right to raise the issue of empty houses. Preventing them in Barnet is a disgrace, and particularly when rough sleeping in London is doubled since 2010. And what I find particularly distressing when I'm walking around Barnet and Underhill is that there are new build properties in these wards which have not been moved into since they've been completed. Absolutely. And this is because Barnet Council does not insist on any affordability criteria for developers. It just caves in again and again and again. In terms of dealing with the problem, I'd be looking at our discretionary powers to start levying council tax before the 2-year period that it normally kicks in. And also looking at CPOs to purchase properties and bring them into use for social tenants.
Now, thank you very much, Amy. Bearing in mind the sort of a conflict, I'd like to go back to David Longstaff to give a short reply to the criticism there's been, and then back to Mr. Edwards.
Excuse me, I'd like to reply actually. Yes.
I beg your pardon? Yes, I'll call you. I'm chairing the discussion. We can call you. It's just that there's been a political issue, and it's only right that Councillor Longstaff replies, and then we can come back to further questions. Okay? Off to you.
Just to say that Labour say they consistently opposed all building on the green belt, except one of their councillors, Tim Roberts, voted to build on the green belt last year. So to say that you consistently voted against it is completely incorrect.
Where?
At the planning committee in Underhill. Sorry, at the planning committee in Underhill for a development on down Mays Lane on a development of kennels in Underhill. It's on greenbelt land, and he voted for it. Please go and check it. He did it. I was on the committee at the time, and he voted for it. Secondly, and I totally take the point about the Ark Academy. I think it's being built in completely the wrong area. The thing is, you have to give good planning reasons not to build an educational institution which has different rules to domestic housing. So had we opposed it, we have to oppose it purely on planning grounds. And I went to the exhibition at Hope Corner. I spoke with the people who were developing and showing us the plans, and I told them I thought it was in the wrong area. I think they will have trouble filling the numbers that they're expecting there. But, you know, that is not necessarily a planning consideration.
Okay, thank you. Now then, we're having Councillor Edwards to reply, and then a quick response from the lady, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Well, I just need to clarify a slight misunderstanding that Councillor Longstaff has presented you with. Let's deal with the vote that Tim Roberts made. This is a private property called Cottage Farm at the end of Maze Lane. It's the old dog kennels where he wanted to build a couple of houses for his family. The old dog kennels, anybody knows anything about planning, that is a brownfield site. And it's within the context of the green belt. It's in private land, and your officers proposed your planning committee to accept that development, and it was the Conservatives that voted against it. So that's just to be clear about that. Now let's deal with the Ark Academy. The Ark Academy is going to be built on metropolitan open span of open land, and as Councillor Longstaff has said, there is no justification for that. On the first time it came to planning committee, the Conservatives voted against it. They voted for it on the second time, on the basis that we need more school places. Where we need the school places is in the west of the borough, but because the Tories don't include any infrastructure development, that's why we've got to have the crisis.
Thank you. That was it. Yeah, thank you. We now want to come back, just leave the microphone there, please. We just want to come back to the lady here. Now, you had another point you wanted to quickly make. Yes? Yes?
I just wanted to say, people that can afford second homes are hardly going to be put off by an increase in rates. And I think that's something that really, really needs to be sorted out in Barnet. And there are houses, and the reason why those ones at the bottom near Underhill, they're 800,000. That's not affordable.
Yeah.
Not affordable for anywhere. Especially when they're going to build a whacking great school on the back of them that hasn't got any transport facilities. Okay. And the transport survey was carried out in August. Well, what doesn't happen in August? That could be school traffic.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, what's the next question? The question over here, yep. It's on housing again, please. On housing. Yes, I beg your pardon, I didn't see it. Hang on. There we are.
In a sense, it is on housing, but it's about the school. Why is it necessary to build a big school on that site when you could have built quite a small one for children with special needs who are not looked after properly on the side, and who would be bussed in, usually on transport, so it wouldn't affect the traffic or the parking or anything else, and it would not be a threat, and that is needed. Why couldn't we have done that?
Here, here.
We know that the Ark Academy is one of those issues which has caused a lot of contention. We've got a story on the Barnet Society website about the football stadium being demolished as we speak. I quite understand that we do need to address this. Let's just ask Labour first of all at the end there. When you, if you pick up the microphone, are you going to respond on the Ark Academy?
Yes, that's a very good question that the lady over there said, because I actually said that at the planning committee. When I was asked what's the alternative then, there needs to be something on the site, I said there are two special needs schools in Barnet, one Maple Down and one whose name escapes me at the moment. Both looking for a site and they can't find one. This would be an ideal site. There's plenty of room there. We could have made some community facilities as well in the developments, and the Conservatives refused to accept that as a valid argument, and that's what should have happened, but unfortunately it's not going to, thanks to the vote of the Conservative-led planning committee.
Thank you. Let's just go back to, then we'll move on to another question. I mean, one of the issues, Councillor Longstaff, is do you think there is any way in which there might be any modifications to this plan that has now been approved to meet some of the concerns of local people about the need for a special school, for example?
Well, to answer your question immediately, is no. We do not own the land. We do not own the school. We cannot change. We can ask them. We can challenge them. I totally agree with the lady. I think you're absolutely right. A special school there would have been perfect. but we don't own the land. We did not sell the land. The land was sold in 2002 for 10,000. Somebody sold in Barnet Council under the Labour Party the ground for £10,000 in 2002. That's what happened to the land. It was owned by the council and it was leased to the football club, but they sold it to somebody at the football club and they sold it on to the Department for Education, who in turn have leased it, as I understand it, to the Arc Academy. Nobody comes into contact with us, but I totally agree with you in terms of the school for special needs. We definitely need somewhere like that, and given half a chance, I would totally change what's been done, but I can't change that.
Right, thank you. Right. Let's just pause for a second. Is there another housing question? We want to move on to that is not connected to the Arc Academy, because not on the Arc Academy?
Not on the Arc Academy, no.
All right. Off you go. Sorry, are you busy on your...
No. In the last financial year, Barnet Council spent £270 million on housing benefit. They spent £25 million on emergency temporary accommodation and £2 million on landlord incentives.
And what's the question?
What are you going to do about it? I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. I don't want to be spending my money like that. What are the panel going to do about it?
Okay, thank you. Well, panel, let's start at the Conservative end. Who would like to pick up this question of the Barnet expenditure?
Hi, good evening. I am a solicitor and I dealt with housing matters.
Can you speak up a little, please?
Fabulous.
Perhaps stand up over and speak, and then...
So I've got a short throat, shout.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'm a solicitor. I've dealt with homelessness and housing matters. It's unfortunate. My main contention with this is the actual statutory law. The council has a duty to house homeless people. So if we don't have housing, if landlords are not wanting to house people in social housing, we've got to entice them, unfortunately. I know it's wasting money, but it's the statutory law that needs to change, first and foremost. Section 24 of the Homelessness Act clearly states that all local authorities must house people who are homeless. But if no one's going to house them, what do we do?
Well, if you didn't sell all the council houses, you'd like to buy. That needs reversing. PDQ.
And we need to start building more social housing and affordable housing. I agree with that. Sorry, and
As for the Conservatives being the party of home ownership, you can see what Right to Buy has done for that. Decimated the entire thing. I don't know why you're so in favour of it, and as for the rest of the parties, you're all the same as well.
Right.
Everyone's in favour of it.
We'll come on to the other party. Yes.
So my position is this. Just to finish off, we need more social housing, yes. And we need more affordable housing, yes. But unfortunately, as it stands now, we're catching up with things that have happened in the past. And we are trying our best, but more needs to be done. In relation to homelessness...
Well, I would say reverse this policy.
In relation to homelessness, we need to house people who are homeless. And we need to give incentives to landlords to do so. Unfortunately, that's what has to be done. Unless you want to open up your homes to anybody and everybody, we need to. We really need to.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, have the Greens got something to say on homelessness and...
Okay, last information I had was actually the Labour did actually bring in a law legislation stating that if a home is empty for more than 6 months, then the council can actually seize it and then rent it out to somebody else. That was changed by the Conservatives into 2 years, and only if there's antisocial behaviour in that, if people complain about antisocial behaviour, meaning someone had broken in, and of course, Mike Freer did actually make squatting a criminal offence. So that actually exacerbated the problems of homelessness, unfortunately. As for building housing, well, the Greens had actually pushed Sadiq Khan to have ballots where if an estate actually wants to be regenerated, if the council wants to regenerate an estate, then they should actually have ballots for the people who are actually living there. And also the case is, if there are any derelict sites owned by the council, and a local group in the community wants to actually develop it, then they can actually apply for a grant and also a discount up to about £2 million. There's actually one happening in Lewisham right now, which is a Labour council. They're applying for a self-built block of flats with 40 units. I don't know if there's any in Barnet. That would actually be great to find out. Maybe the Barnet Society would be able to find out some sites. I mean, I'm actually a builder, so the Greens have this policy of renovating rather than demolishing and then building £1 million apartments. And we like the idea of actually renovating a place and having a zero VAT on house renovations, which would actually encourage people to, instead of actually demolishing the whole thing. Right. So I'm not
Yeah, thank you. We'll go to the Lib Dems next.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
The Independent can have a go as well. We're not stopping.
I'll come back to
I just want to say very quickly that it was said that none of the parties are trying to stop the right to buy. The Liberal Democrats are trying to pause it or stop it completely. We know it's wrong. It needs to be changed. And I just wrote down a couple of things earlier on, which is the council should be specifying a higher percentage of affordable homes in Barnet when developers come along and propose new developments. There should be an increase in the provision of social housing, and not just by private developers, but also by the council. Why doesn't the council lead by example and build some social housing and affordable homes? I don't see any problem with that.
Good, thank you. Did you have a point to make, Ken?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not very familiar with housing law or the numbers that have been quoted, so I'll be honest. But there is definitely a need for more social housing. There's definitely a need for more affordable housing. I think the figure for Barnet is 400,000. That is a lot of money. I've got three middle.
What does that figure mean? 400,000.
That's supposed to be an affordable property. Yeah, exactly. At Salisbury Road, just down the road, I've got three middle earners. They're a nurse, builder, and one's training to be a health psychologist. They want to live around here. They love this community. That's why we moved here. And we've got to find a solution for people like that. I don't want my kids to have to move out of London, and because then they'll have to change jobs, etc., etc. So there is we need to find a solution to this. I don't know what it is, but we have to enable people to find properties easier and more affordable.
Thank you, Ken. Right. Who's going to respond for Labour on homelessness? Yeah.
Thank you. I think you raised about the housing benefit bill as well.
Yes.
The housing benefit bill for private rented sector tenants in Barnet has gone up by 118% since 2008. And you're absolutely right, this is a false economy. It's this concept of individual subsidy as opposed to seeing housing as a public sector good. I think we desperately need to get back to seeing housing as a public sector good. A third of London's right to buy properties are now being let out by landlords to tenants in receipt of housing benefit, etc. And in Barnet, we've lost about 170 council homes over the last 2 years thanks to right to buy. And Jeremy Corbyn has promised that nationally, because this is a national policy issue, there would be a freeze under a Labour government on right to buy, which I think would be helpful. What do I add? You might also be aware that under the Conservatives' current regeneration plans, we're due to lose 800 or more than 800 socially rented homes from Barnet. And because of the new definition of affordability, which is 80% of market rates, they'll be replaced by these so-called affordable homes, which frankly aren't affordable to anyone, as the gentleman over there pointed out. So, for example, the median income in Barnet is about £38,000. Sorry, median household income in Barnet is £38,000 a year. We need 10 times that to get a mortgage on one of these so-called affordable houses, which just frankly isn't possible. And I think the median rent is about 60% of the median take-home pay. Again, it's completely unaffordable. So what we need to be strict about is the definition of affordability. And in the draft London plan, there is a lot of information about different genuinely affordable housing products that City Council is suggesting. So a London living rent, where renters can put, or it's a low rent, so you can put a bit of money aside for a deposit. Actually getting back to social rents, which is about 30% of market rate. And City Council is saying that 30% of development should meet that criteria. And if we do, I mean, it's a further problem, of course, that the Lib Dems and Conservatives voted for a massive discount for the right to buy properties, so that we actually lose some of the receipts and we can't reinvest them. They also completely scrapped the grant for social housing, capital grants. So there are obviously constraints in terms of policy and in terms of finance for investing in public sector housing, but I think it's a decision we have to make. I think in the long run, as you pointed out with the comment on the housing benefit bill, this will actually pay off economically, as well as obviously being the right thing to do for people of Barnet.
Thank you, Amy. Robin, have you got time for one more question on housing and then we'll go to transport, or would you like to? 3 more minutes. Okay, a few more minutes, yes. We've got a question here on housing. Yep. Sorry, give me the right mic. And then we'll come back to the
Whilst I agree that there is a need for social housing, I'm curious to know where all these great ideas and how they're going to be paid for, who's going to do the work, because at the end of the day, the developers don't want to build social housing. They've been allowed to get away with not building them and putting money into other areas. It is a crisis, but it's going to be very difficult to change this, because if I were a developer, I wouldn't want to lose money. Capita and Ring don't have the infrastructure. However, we do have perfectly good Barnet College with students there that are on building courses, they're doing plumbing and that. Surely we could start to utilise those students, build kind of hub houses or like they were prefab, and start to really regenerate the area. But I don't see anyone here on this panel saying how they're going to do this. It's all very well saying you want to, but we need to know how.
Good, thank you very much indeed. Right, now let's start off with Julian Tier from the Conservatives. Right.
Well, thank you very much for that interesting question.
You'll speak up a bit now.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Keep going.
Yes, so the Albert Road gasworks is a very interesting case in point, because the land's been bought by one housing group, which is a major provider of social care and accommodation in the southeast of England. Their model is that they build luxury flats on some plots, and then they plough the proceeds from those luxury developments into building affordable accommodation. And so I think that's a very strong model that we need to support and roll out more widely across the borough.
Right, now, which of the parties, just hang on one second, we want to ask which of the parties has actually got some ideas. Gail Laser is asking for ideas. Right, you've got some ideas then.
Sorry about that, was clumsy. The development in Lewisham is actually called a self-build. It's basically...
What's your ideas for helping on the homework?
Yes, well, I'm actually thinking about it as because... Yes, but it's actually it's working in one development in Lewisham already. 40 dwellings, and the people actually going to be living in those dwellings are the ones building it themselves, and they're actually trying to get planning application right now from Lewisham Council. So the case is that the bigger the development would be, which can actually happen in Barnet as well, is that the more likely that they would actually get funding from the banks or from pension funds.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's just it. Like if there's actually land that's available that is owned by Barnet itself, then these people can actually do that. And those people building it themselves, they will be trained on how to do plumbing, how to do bricklaying. Probably someone like me, we would be the ones to do the shell, but then inside they would be the ones doing it themselves. I know it's actually going to be difficult, but actually it takes a few years of training to do it properly, but then somebody else would actually be checking their work. So it would actually become, so it would actually go through standards as well. And that's it, really. Sorry.
Thank you, Ruthie. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I'll come back to you. Right. Paul Edwards?
Yep. So you asked what would we do concretely if we get into power? Well, there's two things to do. First of all, we won't do like the Conservatives. If a developer wants to develop in Barnet, he's going to have to develop at least 40, if not 50% social housing. And if he doesn't want to do that, then he has to go somewhere else. And Islington Council have consistently achieved those kind of targets As a Labour council in Islington that can achieve that, and that's closer into central London, so they can do it, so can we. And more concretely, in our manifesto, we're going to commit to replacing the 800 social houses that have been lost on Dulles Valley, Graham Park and West Hendon and Stonegrove. We're going to build 800 council houses. The first 500 are available on housing revenue accounts on council-owned land. And we're committed then to work with the GLA and the TfL to find alternative sites for the other 300 houses. That's a concrete proposal. We wish it could be more, but as we know, local authorities have lots of constraints on them in terms of the money they can borrow to actually build council houses. But we'll continue. In our first 4 years, we're committed to building 800 council houses. But all that does is bring us back to where we were before the Conservatives started doing deals with developers. Thank you.
On a point of information, could you just explain, you said that 40 to 50% would be social housing. Can you quantify that by price? And how would you actually, what would be the price of the properties? I mean, if we look at Elm Bank, which we were talking about, there are houses that are going there for £1 million. So what sort of figures are you talking about?
Well, obviously, £1 million is not social housing.
No, that's why I wanted you to put a price.
Yes, of course. Well, as I said before, we had conversations with Linden Homes before they started building, and we were insisting on social housing, and we know what happened. There's no, as far as I know, what they've got is affordable housing. And as Amy said quite earlier, also said, affordable housing and social housing is 30% of the market value. It's not 80%, and what you've got over there is 80% of the market value. So when we sit down with developers, yes, they're going to have to be prepared, maybe, to lose a little bit of money, but if they want to get their 50% of market value, then the deal they have to do with us is that we want 50% of social housing. That's 30% of market value, and that's what they're going to have to do. Now it's going to be tough bargaining, and we know in other authorities it's been tough, but they can do it in Islington. It's about political will, and we're prepared to stand up to developers and say enough is enough. We want houses that the people and our residents and our voters can afford to live in, and their kids and their grandkids can afford to live in.
Thank you very much indeed. I promised the final word to Ken, and then we go on to our new subject, which is transport. One quick word, yes.
Ken. Yeah. It was just a small point, really, but we can't keep doing the same things and expecting different results. We need to try different things. I agree with you. You know, self-bills in certain parts of the borough might be the right way forward. George Clark, I'm a big tech and building fan. Teesside University, the new technology in prefabricated homes. Prefab isn't a dirty word anymore. They can be really, really good and affordable and very eco-friendly as well.
Good, thank you. Well, we've had a tremendous start. We're moving on to transport next because we've got three areas to discuss. We've had a tremendous spat on housing. Robin, why is transport so important for this borough, please?
Well, I'll just start with a few facts because sometimes people don't always quite realise what the current situation is. In Barnet, generally, I haven't been able to get the figures for this particular bit of Barnet. About 45 of all our trips are by car or motorbike. The Draft London Plan aims to reduce this to 20% by 2041. The Barnet planners are already doing their bit by increasingly refusing to allow new housing close to transport hubs to be built with any parking spaces at all. The Mayor wants to encourage sustainable transport, i.e. public transport, cycling or walking. In Barnet currently only 55% are sustainable, he wants it to be 80%. About a third of our trips are by foot, slightly surprisingly to me. As for cycling, when last measured in 2015, only 1.6% in High Barnet cycle to work, only 1% in Underhill, and in Flat Old Oakley, only 0.8%. So get on your bikes. Our many students and elderly citizens are especially reliant on buses, yet services connecting Chipping Barnet to schools and hospitals, particularly east, west and north into Hertfordshire, are not very convenient. You might not necessarily be aware that about as many people from our area commute out of London to work as go into central London. I didn't know that until I looked at the figures the planner sent me the other day. And of course there are also problems with oyster usage around the Barnet-Hertfordshire border. Another inconvenience is that none of the 3 rail stations within or adjoining our area, that's High Barnet, New Barnet and Totteridge and Whetstone, connect well with existing bus services. The Mayor's intention to permit high-density development around and on top of existing transport hubs won't be welcome in our area without radical improvements to rail, bus, car and bike travel. We need properly integrated transport hubs, better orbital links, such as the proposed West London Orbital Railway, linking Brent Cross with Mill Hill East, Finchley Central, Finsbury Park, possibly Gosford and Barking Line. What about the hopper buses that have already been mentioned, I think, by one of our questioners, or even a tram or light rail, connecting New Barnet and High Barnet, eastwards to Chase Farm Hospital and Enfield, and westwards to Barnet General and Edgware.
Right. Well, you had Robin's explanation there of why transport is such a key issue for people who live in this part of North London, our concerns about the lack of east-west progression. You only have to look at the Barnet Society website or anybody else's website and you'll see that there are lots and lots of complaints about the buses and the tubes and everything else. Who'd like to kick off, please, on some transport issue? Yes, I can see a gentleman here. I'm just coming to give you the mic. Off you go.
I live in Potters Road, and if part of Station Road is closed, lots of buses come down Potters Road. If the hill is closed, all the buses come down Potters Road, and then they can't turn right when they get to Station Road. We have a terrible bottleneck at the bridge. If there was a major water burst at outside the Everyman Theatre, Station Road and the hill will both be blocked. What will we do? Is this a council problem? Is it TfL? Are the two talking? Is transport taken into account when there are new buildings going up? I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Next question on transport, please. Who'd like to ask a question? Yes, Private Girl?
It's my understanding that TfL are notoriously difficult to engage with. Can I ask the panel how they would hope to build a better relationship with TfL so that we could get something done?
Right. Is there another quick question before we go to the panel on transport and buses? The High Barnet station? No, I think we're going to go straight into the council. Let's start in the middle this time. Let's start with the Lib Dems. Who'd like to pick up the transport issue?
I'll have a little go. It would help if we didn't antagonise TfL with some comments that are made by people in the council from time to time about the mayor and anything else like that. Let's have a look here. So I'm just finding my place here. I'm not accustomed to doing this, so it's a bit new for me. Transport. There's a lot of issues on this. As I was saying, there's a million more journeys, I think, are expected in London per day by 2041. There's a lot of journeys, and they can't go on the road, so that's no good at all. And part of what the Mayor's suggesting, I think, is the healthy streets idea and active travel, walking and cycling. And taking that point forward, I think there's a couple of things we can do that are very straightforward and very simple to encourage and promote more walking and cycling in Barnet. I think we could have perhaps a Barnet active travel SAR, someone who goes round and talks to schools and businesses and communities and clubs and so on, and really work hard to get school children walking to school with their parents and businesses engaging, promoting their staff to cycle and walk rather than taking trains and using their cars and so on. I think we need to look at the main cycle routes. I think they're trying to create a main cycle network in London. I think this area seems to be missing on a major route. We've got this great road called the Great North Road. I think that's a perfect road to have a main cycle route going north-south into London. I've got a lot of friends who cycle straight into town, and they're always battling difficult roads. I've got a point about the Art Academy. I'm going to leave that to the last, because that, of course, a bit of a problem. But just that, no, the shelter belt, Barnet Hill, I think with the Art Academy happening, we've got to re-look at the whole of Barnet Hill. I think we need to get rid of one of the lanes of traffic. We need pavements on both sides of the road. We need cycle routes on both sides of the road. We need to have dedicated bus stop and turning in the station, in the High Barnet tube station. It's chaos when you walk out of that station and you're crossing the road or walking up past all these cars waiting to pick people up. That whole area needs to be looked at and redesigned. And I'd just like to add, I think the Barnet Society created the trees along Barnet Hill. Well done, marvellous. I think we should double that up. We should have twice as many trees along that hill, make it greener, keep the green link, the green chain coming out of London into the countryside.
Thank you, Simon. And if you hand it down to Labour, who'd like to respond to Labour on transport?
Yeah, just picking up on the two questions. So they're both interlinked, really. I mean, the first question ended up by talking about, you know, how we liaise with Transport for London if Labour took control of the council. What I would say is, if Labour took control of the council in May, we'd have a Labour council, we'd have a Labour mayor, we'd have a Labour assembly member. So I'd like to think the relationship with Transport for London would be better than it is now. Also, I'd like to say, as a person note, I work for TfL, so I'd hope that I can make a little input into that as well. On some of the issues that have been brought up, though, just then I would point out that the mayor is looking at moving the bus stop that was mentioned in the context of coming out of High Barnet Station. On some of the initiatives that we would like to work on more closely on things that have been raised, in terms of cycling, we would like to have our own cycling strategy and look at ways of encouraging cycling, because obviously pollution is becoming more prevalent. It's not getting any better, and we'd like to sort of follow the mayor's lead in terms of what he's doing in terms of in central London, in terms of the low emissions, and the controls that he's putting in place, which are due to come in next year. In terms of other things that are going on as well with TfL and with us, we'd also like to look at just in terms of picking up on the environment point again. So Sadiq Khan has helped fund 50 electrical vehicle charging points in the borough. It's not a lot, but we are totally committed to increasing that number to again alleviate issues with pollution. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. Now let's take the next issue. Right. If we turn to the Conservatives next, this whole question of High Barnet and the tube station and the lack of a hopper bus down there, that's been a long-running issue. Is it somewhere, an issue on which the council has made any progress at all with TfL? Sorry?
The short answer is the hopper bus service has been suggested, and TfL have come back, as they always do, and say it's too expensive, it's £250,000. We've suggested to TfL that they take the bus route, the 34, take it all the way to the hospital, but TfL have come back and said it's too expensive, it'll cost £250,000. We said we wanted to save the 307 bus and do a separate route around so that it would continue to its current stop or its old stop as Arkley before going to the hospital, but TfL said it was too expensive and it would cost £250,000. £250,000 is TfL's answer to everything. We have met TfL on a number of occasions, and they've made suggestions. I think they changed the height of the pavement recently, and that was their major contribution. Which was a good thing to do for disability access, but it never addressed the problems we raised of the buses that stopped on the left-hand side before holding up the traffic to go down the high street on the right-hand side. None of those issues ever get addressed, and when you talk about the fact the bus turns around, every time it turns around it holds up the traffic, they just say, so what? It's where the old trams used to turn around, that's where we want it to turn around, that's where it will continue to turn around. The fact is that even though they didn't want to go to the Arkley 307 stop, whenever you go past occasionally, you'll see 4 or 5 buses there. People do go there, but for whatever reasons, they've decided that 307 goes to the hospital, and that's it. In terms of tube trains, as I'm sure you all know, tube train numbers have been cut now, coming from Finchley Central to High Barnet. The upgrades that were budgeted and planned and agreed by TfL in 2016 have also been cancelled, and there were meant to be 18 new trains, but that's all been cancelled and increased service. In terms of what the gentleman Jim said about
That's the approach.
The approach, again, that would be down to TfL to do their risk assessments and the possible hold-ups and the possible chaos that might happen should an accident, as you've described, occur. And that really is down to TfL to make sure that it has plans in place. That's it. I'm sure if you asked TfL for their plans, if that scenario existed, through an FOI, you would get a response eventually. But it would cost £250,000. And that sounds really negative, but it is hard work dealing with TfL. And I've been to a number of meetings with them, and it is almost banging your head against the wall. And you can have a Labour government this and a Labour mayor that. It's still the same problem with TfL, I can assure you.
Thank you. Mr. Wickstein.
Thank you. We need long-term solutions to the congestion. A lot of it is down to national policy. I think something we could do here in the long term is to discourage people from moving to Barnet. It's a lovely place to live. We need to keep quiet about it. The reason the council promote Barnet as being a nice place to live is because in the short term, if more people move in, it raises their council tax income. So that will involve in the long term those of us who can afford it paying a little bit more. You can't do that straight away because obviously we've all got commitments and so on which rely on the tax being fairly level. So that would reduce congestion.
Ken, have you got a point you wanted to make? Ken Rowland, Independent.
I'm going to use this word, I think, for the first time tonight, the National Health Service. We've got Chase Farm Hospital and we've got Barnet Hospital. There used to be a service between there to help nurses and doctors and people that are working, but I don't think that exists anymore. I think we need to look at that. I used to work for a big organisation that had contingency plans. As I've said before, I live in Salisbury Road, so when I use my car, go to Stapleton Road, St Albans, there's been several occasions, and it's back to the point the gentleman made, we have had gridlock in several time periods recently, and it's been caused by big accidents at certain junctions. How are people supposed to get to a sick person using an ambulance? I've seen countless ambulances stuck in traffic, and it's just little things like shaving off a bit of a corner just so as there's two flows of traffic instead of one, all backing up. There's things we can do. So I've firstly asked for a traffic review of the whole area, taking into account all the London plan, known residential developments, etc. Strongly disagree with the reducing the services on the Northern Line. Point made. We're going to build homes here. This is going to put more and more pressure on buses and tubes and things like that.
Thank you very much. I'd like now to ask a question on behalf of one of the people who's written into us, which is that we have, as we know, an ever-expanding controlled parking zone in High Barnet. Now the question is, there looks as though there's going to be and has to be a further extension around Barnet Hospital, because of course Barnet Hospital provides too little accommodation. Of course we also know, and I'm looking at Councillor Longstaff and Councillor Edwards now, we know that councils know that CPZs are a good way of raising money. Now if you go to some London boroughs, of course the CPZs operate in the evening as well, not just at 6:30, but they go on until 9:30. They operate on Saturdays and Sundays. So if we could get the two main parties just addressing this one point, Councillor Longstaff, but first, if I turn to you, what would Labour's policy, or whoever you nominate on your side, what would be Labour's policy with regard to CPZs? Would you extend them? Would you increase the charges? Would you keep them operating longer? Because it is a key issue for Barnet.
Well, the question of CPZs is a really difficult one, because the reason that we have one round Barnet Hospital is because when we were first elected in 2014, we were getting lobbied by lots of people living in Elmbank, Well Road, and the roads surrounding and off Bells Hill, Sutton Road, and Stifton Crescent and everything. To be perfectly honest, we tried to discuss with the hospital about trying to help, because we know that, as we talked about housing before, many of the people who come and service our hospital can't afford to live here, so they drive in, and they need to find somewhere to park. And if they're there in our 12-hour shift, they've been parking around the roads around the hospital. And sometimes they've blocked people in their driveways and so on. And eventually, you know, we get elected to represent the interests of the people who live in our wards. And you can't basically ignore people's complaints about the difficulty of parking and the difficulty of traffic being blocked in the road. And so, in a sense, politicians have to respond to that, and we've responded. We've had several consultations. Our council officers have done, I think, 3 consultations with the people living around Barnet Hospital. And the final consultation, which I think is they call the statutory consultation, deals with what it will look like. So it's not down for the politicians to say, oh, well, it's going to have to be 24 hours a day. They get various options, and the majority of the people living around there choose a particular option. And occasionally when they review it, as it is in other CPZ zones, as far as I understand, the people either want them to change or they generally want them to stay there.
But one of the points I made was that if you go towards inner London, you find that a number of the Labour councillors use the CPZs as a very easy way to collect extra money by charging.
That's certainly not my particular view. My view is trying to help improve this quality of life of people who live down there. They pay a one-off fee, annual fee, and that's it. I don't think there's any plans in Barnet, and I'm sure David will say the same, to have 24-hour parking restrictions.
Okay, let's ask Councillor Longstaff to explain the Barnet Council's position on CPZs, please. Would you be happy answering that on?
Oh, absolutely. Just to give you a rough idea, in Westminster, the special parking account, all the money from the parking goes into a special parking account and is spent on the roads. It can't be taken to be spent on other things, so it's spent on transport-related issues. In Westminster, their special parking account averages an income, I believe, of around £60 million a year from fines and charging. In Barnet, we get around about £5.5–6 million a year, I believe. In Islington and Camden, you're looking at 35 to 40 million in their special parking account. And those are the differences from the charges that you get from the CPZ, from parking charges and from parking fines. The policy is always been, since I've been a councillor, that it has to be led by the residents. If the residents want a parking zone, then they will contact a councillor either through a petition or through coming to surgeries, etc., and we'll start the ball rolling and we take it from there. In the recent case of the hospital extension, but of the hospital CPZ, which has come up into the High Barnet area, the consultation, the proposal, to explain how it happens, you get an informal consultation followed by an official consultation. The informal consultation asks for people's feelings towards the CPZ. Do they want them in their roads? Would they support it? And then they put together a proposal, and out comes the proposal, and that proposal goes to committee. Now, unbeknownst to the residents of Kings Road and Grimsdyke, whilst a low number of people responded on the informal consultation, because it said informal, so they didn't think it meant much, it did inform the official proposal. So when they got the official proposal, whilst they weren't keen to have a CPZ, they hadn't realised the ramifications that if Granville has a CPZ, the knock-on effect is that their road is next, and it's only 2 to 3 minutes away from the hospital. So now we have the situation where I'm trying desperately to get another consultation done, because most of the residents are now saying, well, it's going to make life impossible in their roads. So now we're trying to get another consultation done, because legally you have to do that. You just can't impose a CPZ. That will take a minimum of 3 weeks. We'll try and do the consultation, followed by the design, the technical design, and all the other bits that you have to do before you actually send it out to a tender and to be built in. And hopefully we can tie those two things in together so they don't get the knock-on effect from the CPZ being introduced in Granville and Argyle Road. So that's the policy, is that we only do it when residents ask for it. The other thing, which is a very important point, and it's something that was raised to me by a lawyer in Kings Road, is that they feel that the hospital have a legal obligation to deal with the problems that they create through their expansion, and that's currently what I'm chasing at the moment through the legal department at Barnet to find out just exactly what is the position. Can we force the hospital to have to build maybe a first floor over their car park so that they have a second story? And that in itself is not the most expensive thing in the world to do when you see how much they're charging for a parking ticket. I think that is a doable, and it wouldn't be noticed, and you can build these things in a very green way so that it actually looks like you're looking at foliage. So that would be my recommendation. And that's what I'm chasing at the moment, is to force the hospital into action.
Thank you very much indeed. Right. Well, I think now we would like to move on to our... I beg your pardon? Okay. Yep.
On CPZs, the problem with CPZs is they don't solve the problem, they move the problem somewhere else. If you look at, say, for instance, the battle that you've had in Puller, Seabright, Calvert, round there, over CPZs over the years, and they've resisted that. So Wentworth being as well, it's the same issue. And Kings, all it does is move the problem, and it also reduces the amount of parking available because you have to have marked bays for people to park in, which means you cannot park over your own drive. So that, it doesn't actually help solve the problem. We've got to look for more intelligent solutions to problems than that. The hospital thing is partly cost as well, isn't it? I mean, who's going to park there when they can park for free in a surrounding road? So it's just shifting the problem all the time.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay. I think now we'd like to move on to our final topic, and then we've got perhaps a few minutes for any other questions at the end. But Robin is now going to move on to another very contentious area, which is the future of Barnet Town Centre. So over to you, Robin.
Yes, the heading really is town centres. As I said earlier, we do have more than one town centre within the Barnet Society territory. So we're welcoming your thoughts about New Barnet as well as Chipping Barnet High Street area. There are just 2 of 50 local town centres in Barnet. As we all know, town centre shopping nationally is in decline. The average across the borough between 2013 and 2016 was a 2% decline. High Barnet lost 1% and New Barnet lost 5%. In Golders Green, for comparison, it was down 12%. In fact, there have been slight drops in vacancy rates in our 2 local town centres, and there's been significant growth in certain uses. Planners haven't published figures for our own particular centres, but across Barnet, betting shops have increased by 7%, convenience stores by 8%, restaurants by 14%, and cafes by 23%. Our planners are also expecting new homes in the town centres by 2026. There's 250 forecast in High Barnet and more than 600 in New Barnet, about 850 in all. But that's only about a quarter the number needed to meet Mayor Khan's target. Some of it will be in converted offices, but our town centres still need offices and other businesses and affordable workspace. We do have 2 local planning guidance documents, the Chipping Barnet Town Centre Strategy and the New Barnet Town Centre Framework, but neither of these says very much about housing density. High Barnet is also fortunate enough to have 2 conservation areas, one each end of the High Street, which will give them more protection. But they cover only about a third of the strategy area, so if the London plan goes through, the rest could be redeveloped at much higher density, unless the Barnet's local plan imposes stringent restrictions. Before I hand over to Nick again, a quick update on the High Street pavement widening down the road here on behalf of the town team. Since last spring, the proposal for High Street pavement widening and associated improvements has been revised to take account of some residents' objections. On Monday, the area committee agreed the funding for detailed design to proceed. It was originally hoped to go out to public consultation this spring and to carry out the building work over the summer holiday period, but this timetable may be a bit optimistic. The town team will meet next week to discuss how best to keep the project moving forward. And I think it would only be right to just ask David Longstaff, who chairs the town team, to provide what I think is some slightly more up-to-date information about that.
Yep.
Yep.
Following the first consultation, it came back and we did listen and discuss, and obviously the proposals got withdrawn following the first consultation. So now the town team, with the representatives from various local resident organisations, have put together with everybody that we can find the proposals which will come forward. They won't come forward. They were agreed on Monday or Tuesday night now to do the study. Now the initial council plans will come forward. They would come forward a bit quicker, but we have this thing called PERDA because there's a local election. So from the 27th of March to the 4th of May, no council announcements or consultations can take place. So on hopefully the 5th or 6th of May, the consultation will start. It will last for 3 weeks. And following that, the officers will take all the submissions, produce a report, and hopefully it will be in favour. It will then go to committee, will hopefully be agreed by committee because the funding has been arranged. And then it's a case of getting the builder, the road maintenance people, whoever the term contractor is, to put together proposals. And it is anticipated, if all goes well according to what I've described, the work will start in September, depending on how long it will take. We don't want to run into the Christmas fair period. And if it looks like it's going to upset the traders, we may have to put it back to January. But the aim would be to do it in September.
Thank you very much indeed. Right. That, of course, is quite a major project. But let's open up to any other questions that people have about Barnet Town Centre. Who'd like to kick us off? Yes, John Dix, there we are.
I'd really like to understand how serious you are about boosting town centres. In High Barnet, people have an expectation that the town centre is going to be kept clean and looking presentable. Now, last year, the townkeeper for Chipping Barnet was made redundant, and I hear today that street cleaning in High Barnet at weekends will stop. That's true. The unions were consulted on it today. So there will only be street cleaning done by 1 van and 2 operatives throughout the borough at weekends. Now, if we want to keep our town centres thriving, people expect them to be kept clean. What are you going to do to make sure that our town centres are kept in top condition so that they can compete against the likes of the enlarged Brent Cross?
It very much builds on the question that John just asked. If you look at Barnet High Street now, we've got something like 7 opticians, 10 charity shops, 4 cafes. There is no variety.
34.
What are we going to do to attract more businesses like Room 89, like the cheese shop, into the borough, such that we have reasons for people to shop in the borough rather than just go to the optician or a charity shop?
Another question before we give us a good range of questions, or should we go straight to the panel? Yes.
I'd like to ask how is it possible to encourage somebody like Hobbycroft to take over one of the empty premises in the Spires, which is supposed to be yet more eating houses. You know, we're just awash with eating houses, most of which are half empty because there are so many of them. And we haven't got any. We've got 4 or 5 schools in the area with children who may be interested in crafts, in making things, in learning things, and there's no facility for them to buy anything. And the other thing I'm concerned about is the fern rooms. What's going to happen to the old people who've been in there all these years while they put up these blooming flats?
We've had a good range of questions there, and we'll start with Labour at that end and work down the table. Just to explain this question about the fern rooms, that is the premises in Salisbury Road, which are currently used by the Barnet Old People's Committee. That is a property that's been sold by the owners of the Spires to a developer who's now putting forward plans, and the Barnet Old People's Committee is fearful that their facility there will have to close because they can't find anywhere. But we've got a big range of questions. Who'd like to speak up for Labour on the town centre? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Well, in response to the answer, how serious are we about boosting town centres? We are very serious about boosting town centres. In relation to the cleanliness aspect, we will be taking very, very tough action on fly tipping and environmental crime. We're going to be introducing 5 free pickups of large white goods to all households in Barnet, which I think will tackle some of the major issues there. We will also be introducing more police who will be specifically targeted at keeping the streets clean. Yes, crime enforcement. In order to further boost town centres, we'll be offering 30 minutes free parking. This is something that we will be doing stage by stage, and High Barnet would be one area which we were involving in the initial phase. So within a year you would see 30 minutes free parking in High Barnet, which would be done through my account. We would work very, very closely with residents and businesses to establish what they wanted and devise a meaningful strategy based on true engagement rather than just putting things out there and then not really responding. We would have a small business forum within a year as well. So on the answer of empty shops, I'm not sure, is Hobbycraft a store you were talking about?
Hobbycraft is a store which caters for any and every kind of craft creative.
So obviously we'd want to attract as many businesses to High Barnet as possible, and that would be part of creating a thriving environment and working with small businesses. But what we would do specifically for empty shops is invite charities and volunteer groups to use them. This would be part of a Barnet cultural strategy where we would get people to engage with their area. But we would have a town centre strategy with town centre officers management. Sorry, have I not answered a final question?
That's no good. That's not what we need. What we need to know is that we are surrounded by areas of investment. We have very cost-projected.
Hang on, Gail.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yes,
We are left behind in investment with the council, and what you've said is not what we want to hear at all. We've got a high street full of shops that really aren't serving the community. I'm sure Hobbycraft is one of them, but we need a lot more than Hobbycraft. We don't need any more charity shops. We need a town centre manager, even if it's shared with other areas like East Barnet. We need street cleaning, yes. We need proper engagement. We need support. We need the investment for the pavement build-outs, but we need it to be done properly, with proper quality. There is so much that needs to be done, and I'm afraid at the moment you're not convincing me.
Okay, well I can't promise you a town centre manager, but perhaps that's something which would come out of consultation. On the make-up of the high street, we would use planning regulations to limit betting shops and fast food outlets, which is one of the powers that the council actually does and something we can tangibly actually do to influence that. See, with things like Amazon and issues, this is issues that town centres across the country are facing. A model I'd like to look to, how I'd like to see High Barnet is modelling on Muswell Hill, and I'll certainly meet people there about how they achieve that town centre.
Good, thank you very much. Well, there we are. And expect off you go, Simon. The Liberal Democrats.
Okay, well, I think there's a certain element of speculate to accumulate involved in this, and as the lady just said, it starts off with making Chipping Barnet Town Centre a more desirable destination. Now that involves making the high street a nicer place. Now I believe that the town team is drawing up plans and so on. So part of the things that I've seen, I've not seen the plans in detail, but widening the pavements, creating shelter, environmental shelter, whether that's from the sun or from the wind and the rain. It's creating places to sit and rest. It's creating the high street to be an interesting place to be, to want to walk along, with bits of artwork and interesting lighting and all sorts of things of that sort.
But it's the main arterial road to London. Yeah. What are you going to do about that?
Well, actually, I think we need to control it more. I think you have to restrict, not restrict. You have to make it easy to cross the road. We've got to look after people who aren't quick on their feet. We have to look after children as well. We want older people and younger people to want to be on that street. So that means making the roadway easier to cross, making less parking on the streets but more trees and quality trees, quality landscape. We have car parks all around High Barnet. Now, I also think the Chipping Road car park, the car park just off the high street there, I don't think it's council operated or owned, but I think where the market operates, I think that should be a car park where it has 1 hour free car parking in a similar way that Moxon Street car park has. Yeah. It's been sold, I'm sorry. Well, we can try again. I don't know. Let's have a look. I think there are other things we can do to encourage people to come to Barnet. I think subsidising the market, encourage more. We've got Bob here today. Is it? With the Teenage Street Market. Brilliant idea. Excellent. Let's go for that. Let's invite some other specialist markets to come and share our market space as well. Let's have more events. We have the Christmas fair. Brilliant. Went to it, I think, twice, and I love it today. Why don't we have a music fair, an art fair, a food fair? Let's do more regular activities so we get a reputation for doing interesting, exciting things. I don't want people to keep going to Brent Cross or London Coley or to Camden Town. I want them to come to Barnet. See, Barnet's a destination. I want people to come to Barnet, go for a walk in the woods and enjoy our heritage. It's a great place to be, and I think there's an awful lot we can do.
Thank you. I've got 7 things listed down here, so I'll rattle through them really quickly. Incubator business rates, taper relief for new startups to stimulate variety and encourage, I never say this word, entrepreneurship. Create a new town centre manager role. I don't understand the comment of the person that's lost his job, because I don't think we've ever had one. I'm a strong supporter of pavement build-out projects. I think it's the right thing to do, and certainly supports Sadiq Khan's Healthier Streets, which I fully support in terms of addressing the balance between pedestrians and cyclists and cars. We all need to live together, but there's got to be a balance. Empty shops. I'd do more. I would force the council to say, that's empty for 3 months. Right, action will be taken. You know, they'll break down the door, they'll go in, they'll do it, and they'll charge. There's not enough enforcement. The high street is dirty, and we do need more street cleaning. We do need better enforcement. I think the council have upped their game a little bit, but there's still a long way to go. Developers deliberately flout planning regulations in terms of store risers and signage in, you know, what is a fairly historic high street as well. And I think we need to introduce maybe not electronic signage, but something that indicates, 1, where are the car parks, and 2, are there any spaces in them? I mean, loads of other places use them. We just need to, back to the traffic review, we just need to think about how people want to navigate around our lovely town centre.
Thank you, Ken. And the Greens?
Street cleaning. I think we just have to decide, are we prepared to pay to have our streets cleaned better? I would be. As regarding the number of businesses, we have to look at the cause, which is people are buying more on the internet these days. Ultimately, the wages of the workers in the shops and the rent and the rates are paid for by us. If we're prepared to pay for them, great, but if we carry on shopping on the internet, then we need an orderly transition of some of the shops to some other use. The Green Party very much encourages local industry. It's a shame that the planning rules sometimes don't let the councillors turn down applications to turn industrial units into flats. About the free parking, you have to be a bit careful. If there is an area where people currently park and pay, and it is always full of cars during shopping hours, then making it free isn't going to increase the turnover and increase the number of people using their cars to park there. It obviously varies from place to place. The Spires is often half empty, so obviously that needs its charges reducing, but that's not, as you know, not in the council's remit. Echoing something that Ken said earlier about the pavement build-outs, about the ambulances getting through, I'm not entirely sure. I think we need some sort of unused space in the high street, not designated for anything, so that when there is a bit of an emergency or extra congestion, people can pull into it, let an ambulance pass and so on. So I think we need to have a look at the new plans very carefully.
Who wants to respond for the Conservatives?
Thank you very much. Gosh, where to start? In terms of what John said earlier on regarding the cleansing, what are we going to do to stop it? Well, first thing I'll do tomorrow is find out exactly what is going to happen, what exactly is proposed. There was a time last year, and I had to be on a run, and I came up through the high street, and it was the most filthy, disgusting tip I'd seen in a long, long while. And I went back and had a right go at the officers, and lo and behold, they went out, they cleaned it, and it all looked sparkling new. A week later. And then 5 minutes after that, we go back to the same old pattern. There is a shortage of money. It would be stupid to say that there is not a shortage of money, but the environment we live in is incredibly important. There is a deterrent. We do, 45 people were fined for dropping litter in High Barnet last year. 45 people is not a lot, but it's a start. The litter police are the civil enforcement officers. The police do not enforce it, although I believe the council can ask the police to enforce it. But that's for the Environment Committee and has never been done to my knowledge. In terms of 30 minutes free parking, at the moment you've got an hour free in Moxon Street, you've got 2 hours free north of Pizza Express, there are 8 15-minute free bays, and yes, the rest are all pay bays. And maybe that can be changed, maybe that can be altered, but if you have people hunting up and down the highway for a 30-minute free bay, you're going to create more pollution in the long run.
Moxon Street's always full.
Because you can pay again by phone.
The phone rooms, somebody mentioned the phone rooms.
You don't have to be there.
The last set of plans I saw, I haven't seen the current set, but the last set of plans I saw, which was for flats, also included community space on ground level. And that's the whole point, that the people who develop it will have that obligation, I believe, I hope, and would certainly be asking for that obligation, that they provide the same community rooms, because they are exceptionally important, as you quite rightly said. In terms of Barnet in the future, Barnet Museum do a fantastic job. Barnet Museum are doing a tremendous amount of work in looking for the Battle of Barnet. It is a major part, I think, of a town centre that will have an historic attraction up there with the Leicester Car Park and Richard III, as and when the studies are finished. And I think that is a massive draw for our town centre, with a lovely museum. And I don't know whether I'm allowed to say it, I'll probably have to declare an interest, but I thought that you should have been given planning permission last year because it was educational. Your extra part of the building, it was for education, and that you can build for. And that's an incredibly important part. But on top of that, we've also got Physic Well, and there are lots of other attractions in the area. And that's, although, as Charles said earlier, we don't want to attract too many people up to High Barnet, because you don't want to find out, but it is good for the local economy to have people coming up here, hopefully to see wide, nice, clean, very clean pavements, and to be able to move around, to see the woods, to see different parts of High Barnet, the sort of the Charles Dickens aspect. We've got in Paul Baker a great guide, again doing lots of lovely walks. So there's lots of great things, and it's just about making sure that we promote them as a town team and making sure that we keep it nice and clean and green. And that's what we're trying to do as a town team. It's fantastic local residents who really are working as hard as they can to improve the local area.
Good, thank you. Right, now we've got time for some more questions. Who'd like to ask the next question? We've got one at the back, yes?
I
question, but thanks for the comments about Barnet High Street. But surely the thinking has to be about turning the high streets into something a bit more than what it is at the moment, thinking about maybe turning those empty shops into hubs where people can rent the space out as moving offices or self-employed people. And Elstree Studios are just around the corner. How about diverting some of that traffic to work with Barnet Theatre and raise more revenue for the council? Because I don't see that the theatre at the moment is actually being maximised or used as much as it could be. I think that I just don't get an impression from anybody who has spoken. There's actually a type of thinking that needs to be to turn the high street into a modern, moving, futuristic space for the younger generation in Barnet. It just all seems, I don't know, I think there needs to be more thinking about that.
Thank you for the question. Another question? Yes, here please. Speak, yes.
Somebody was speaking about the state of Barnet High Street. There's a gentleman who has been cleaning our gutters every day. He goes up one side and down the other side, and he never leaves a speck of dirt. He's so proud of his job, he really loves it, and I just want to stand up for him. He's such a nice man. He won't leave not the tiniest bit of cigarette butt or anything. Yes, and he's a lovely man. He lives.
Yes, yes. I think we all know the gentleman you're talking about, the man who cleans the high street. Perhaps John Dix can explain. Have you heard, Mr. Dix, what's going to happen to that man who's quite a fixture in Barnet? Because if you could just explain a little bit more about what you're fearing, because clearly it's news to council.
As far as I'm aware, it won't affect the weekday cleaning of the streets, but it's the weekend cleaning. And that's the area that's been cut. That's what I've been told today, and it's been published today, the amount of hours that are being cut for each area, and that relates to weekend cleaning.
Clarification. Another question? Yes? Yes?
Not so much a question as really a suggestion. I've spent a lifetime of hearing people pontificating about what Barnet High Street needed or didn't need. It took outsiders, those of you who have been really excited to see the village market moving from being one shop into 3 shops. It's taken over 2 empty properties, and it is a wonderful place. Go in there, all of us, and find out what the hell they did to get themselves there and what they saw in Barnet, because if we can bottle it, we should be on a winner.
Thank you. Another comment from another? Yes?
Can anyone explain why the parking on the market side has been suspended? You can't get in there.
They sold it.
Huh?
They sold it. They sold it.
Private land.
Yeah, but
it was owned by the Spires, and they have now sold it on to someone else.
Okay.
Not very satisfactory.
No. Another question down here? Then we'll come down the table for a final answer from everybody. Yes? Off you go.
This is sort of a wider question. I'm actually moving to High Barnet. I'm very excited on the 8th of March. I don't know much about the insourcing and the outsourcing. I just wonder if this is all part of the outsourcing. We're famous for being the, what do they call us? The easy council. We've given away everything. And maybe what we lost is the heart. And I'm excited about being in High Barnet, and I just wondered if the councillors would be committed to insourcing a bit. Maybe that would change things.
Good, thank you.
In terms of improving our high streets, making Barnet a destination should also include things, sort of recreation facilities, things that people come to. There's a risk of mentioning Arc again, but we got rid of a football area for that. Why don't we look at having swimming facilities, recreation facilities, you know, make Barnet a place people come for healthy recreation. At the moment, the cinema is about the only leisure facility that people come for.
The football field.
Yeah, can I ask that about
Yes.
closure of the public facility, the community facility at QE Girls?
We'll come back. Just hold on.
The swimming
Got a
pool
question here.
and
Yes,
the sports
we will come back to you.
Yeah.
And you'll have the last word. Just be patient. Yes, off you go.
Like the last person over here, I'm quite concerned about recreational facilities in the centre of High Barnet, and in particular the library. I hear lots of stories from people who are very unhappy with the current situation, and I would like to ask the panel what, if any, changes they are hoping to make, because I don't think the current situation is one that I would want to sustain.
And we've got a question down here, the lady who wanted to ask about QE Girls. I beg your pardon? And then
So I'd like to know if the council have any power whatsoever to encourage QE Girls to reopen the sports centre, their school hall and the swimming pool to allow the public to use those facilities again. Originally, it was all part of the community and they just closed it on spurious health and safety grounds. Clubs that have used those facilities for 30 years, that have had youngsters come through and have got into the England volleyball juniors, that swimming, there was a trampoline club for children with physical disabilities, all just shut down and everyone's had to go and find alternative accommodation.
thank you. And last question.
I agree with the lady up there. I think the comments were just waffle and didn't really address any issues. One of the biggest issues in Barnet High Street is the quality of the air and the pollution and the size and the number of lorries that are driving through that street. Not one of the people on that table mentioned traffic, pollution or lorries. And they are massive. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. So what is anybody doing about it? Because we're talking about getting more shops, and yet how are they going to be delivered? How seem to have lost it. You know, we're sort of talking about meetings and getting together and chatting, but what? These shops are private businesses. That Starbucks that closed, the rent is £53,000 a year. The two restaurants that are empty in the Spires, they want to charge £100,000 a year to rent them. Okay, no wonder they're each. No wonder they're empty.
Good point, thank you. Well, look, we've had a marvellous selection of answers for our panel. I'm going to go down the panel from Labour down to the Conservatives to give David Longstaff the last word. But you couldn't have put it better, could you? You know, we are, as a group here, calling for more vision for High Barnet. So who'd like to pick up the baton on behalf of the Labour Party? Yep.
So there are a lot of questions just now, and I'm going to try and work through them and then hand over to my colleague. So initially tonight, I think you've heard a difference here between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party. We will be a more hands-on council, and we will really, really manage resources. That goes right across the board, from working very, very closely with local businesses to actually holding Capita to account and keeping as many services in-house as possible. Now, one thing I really appreciate the comment from the woman about the guy who cleans your streets. We really, really value council staff, and we also want all of our contractors to really value their staff. That's why a Labour council will be a London living wage council. Someone asked on the library, so we're not happy with the library situation either, and a lot of Labour councils very heavily involved in campaigning against the cuts to libraries, and it's certainly something we will be looking to make those libraries hubs of the community once more, which we feel has been taken away from people. We will invest in professional librarians and staff in libraries. We're going to extend staffed hours with professional library staff for each core and core library, core plus library, 4 to 8 for at least 4 days a week, and on Saturdays at least 10 to 5. So on the issue with the cutting the street cleaning, I can't give you a confirmed answer tonight because, to To be perfectly honest, it's the first time I've heard of it. This is something we will go away and find out as much as possible about, and it's obviously not something that we want to support, but obviously budgets are very, very tight, and I don't want to make any promises that we can't deliver, because we might well be in a position of actually delivering them, which is exactly what we want. Just to round up from myself, and then I'll pass over to Paul, on the well-being aspects that have been mentioned. For Barnet Labour, I'm actually the lead on adults and safeguarding, which has health remit, and I'm at the moment compiling a list of everyone I will meet with should we get into power to get a better public health outcome. So that will include looking at things like good gyms, seeing if we can bring them up into High Barnet, meeting with any schools that have facilities, meeting with the new leisure centre to see what they can offer the population for free. Now I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Paul to round up the evening for us.
Well, I just want to deal with the issue of capita and the external services. I think it was Holly that raised it. So when you listen to the Conservatives, they spoke very eloquently at the last full council about saving £1 million or £10 million a year. I can't remember what the figure was. But what you need to understand is what's behind all of this. So one of the reasons that they externalised a lot of these services mostly to capita was because they could get out of their responsibilities to pay their contribution to the pension scheme. As we know, most employers struggle because pensions are expensive and they have to make their own contribution. That's what drove them. It isn't about saving council taxpayers' money, it's about bringing down their costs. And we've now got a major problem. We haven't seen the contract, we don't know what's in the contract. But my personal view is I would prefer our service to be run directly by people employed by the council, because then they're under our control and not under the control of a third party. And I want to give you an example. In the first couple of days after me being elected in May 2014, I had a phone call from a woman who said, my parents used to live in Milton Avenue, and they used to climb up the hill to go to Barnet, and the older they got, the more difficult that became. And they used to say to her, we'd like to, when we go, we'd like you to make sure there's a park bench halfway up the hill before you carry up the high street. And she said, I'd like to do that. So I pursued that. I had to go to Capita in Coventry. And when I explained to them where it was, they hadn't a clue whereabouts I was talking about. Even couldn't find it on the map. Now that's a simple example, but that's why we need to employ people directly by the council who know the borough, know the people who live here, and if we can do it, that's what we'll do. But we can't make any promises, because we're not going to say we're going to bring back services from Capita. If the Capita come along and say, thank you very much, but it's going to cost you 10 million quid. We want to see the contract. What we're going to do at the first is to make sure, unlike the Tories, make sure that they do the job that they're getting paid for, and not come back and say, we can't do it like that, we need another £11 million. And that's the issue that we face with Capita. So we'll do what we can, but we're committed to providing local services by local workforce in the employment of the local council. And I think Amy wanted to just say one word about QE Girls' swimming pool.
Yeah, just on that one issue. Okay.
Yeah, I have to declare an interest as a former QE Girls student. I learned to swim at QE Girls pool. I basically spent most of my youth there, and I swim competitively, well, for clubs and stuff. So for me, having a leisure strategy that actually supports that, facilitates that, and has room not just for the elite kind of swimmers, but for people who are learning, people who need it for health reasons, that's really important. My understanding is that that became closed essentially to the public when QE Girls became an academy. So once again, evidencing how academies aren't responsive to the community's needs, I'm afraid. I'm very clear what my position is on academies. I don't think we should have gone down this route of I think ARC also provides a really good example of why we shouldn't be having free schools forced on us, but anyway. So I don't know what the council's powers are exactly in terms of negotiating with QE Girls. When I was a councillor negotiating with academies, quite often they said, don't want to talk to you because you're a councillor, go to the DFE directly. So I don't know what our powers exactly will be, but I'm very happy to talk to QE Girls about that. A little bit of a silver lining is that we've got the new Barnet recreation ground being turned into a leisure centre, I believe. And I think the priority will be that making sure that, because that's replacing Church Farm swimming pool, that doesn't close before the new replacement facility opens. So that's something that will be a priority for me.
Thank you very much, Amy. Right.
So just a couple of points from all that. Libraries, what the council have done, what this current administration has done to the library service is criminal. It needs to be reversed. Libraries should be a hub where we can actually be part of this vision for the town centre of actually bringing people back. It's a reason to come to Barnet. And I got into some trouble for saying that, you know, children were now banned from libraries, but in fact that is actually the case in reality. That's what's happening now, is that children cannot go to libraries on their own because, you know, they are unstaffed half the time. So that's, you know, that's just ridiculous. Now the other issue is Capita is a big problem here because we have a huge democratic deficit now because we are tied up in these contracts with Capita. And, you know, so whatever happens, whoever gets into power, they are stuck with these contracts and they've got to try and negotiate their way out of them if they want to bring services back in-house. So that's a major issue. And these contracts, frankly, were signed with, I suspect, most of the councils having no clue what was in them or how they operated, and half the officers as well, to be honest. So we've put ourselves in a massive problem. We've seen recently what's happened to Carillion. That same Capita, we've heard, is also financially, you know, potentially has problems. So, you know, that again is going to be a problem. Outsourcing has to be much more carefully thought about if it's going to be used as an option, and it should, you know, the first option I think should always be to try and run the services locally with people who know the area, and that's just common sense, isn't it? QE Girls, both my daughters went to QE Girls. I've used those leisure facilities, played badminton there, lots of stuff, you know, for a long time. We need to sort of be talking to QE Girls definitely about bringing those facilities back online. You know, they should be available to the community. You know, after all, you know, it's our taxes that are funding QE Girls. On the high street, yes, we do need more vision for that. We need to be looking at ways we can improve the high street. Pollution is a big issue. We need, you know, there's also central government role as well in actually what do we do to incentivise the use of, you know, less polluting vehicles, hybrids, electric vehicles, you know, public transport, taxes, all those things. We need to be looking at how we can incentivise lower pollution sort of for them as well. So those are some of the things on that. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, cool. Covered quite a lot of things there. Insourcing, yes. Local services by local people, absolutely the right thing to do. Library, I don't know why they did it. It was purely cost, but bad decision. And they did all the work during the summer when all the kids need to use libraries. The high street is going through a bit of a change, like lots of high streets. We need to help it transition. We are now in the middle of the internet generation, whether we like it or not. People deliver to their homes regularly. They don't interact with the high streets in the same way that they used to. So there's a couple of points. We need to think creatively and more and differently about how we use the empty shops, and that might be leisure or residential or recreational use. And to Simon's point, the build out will help the air pollution in the high street by speeding up cars. You have less emissions, but I totally agree we need to restrict lorries coming through. And one final point, you know, cleaning of the streets is stopping at the weekends when most people interact with the high street. It's just ludicrous.
Okay, about the air pollution, the Mayor of London is actually, well, Karen Russell, who's actually a Green member of the London Assembly. There's a consultation at the moment which is about the low emissions zone. At the moment it's actually just going to be mainly in inner London, but if you could actually answer the consultation, that'd be great. If all 100 of you actually were to go to that, to the Mayor of London's site, then hopefully we can actually increase the area. Hopefully, I did answer it would be nice if it's from the M25 inwards. But in any case, if you can't find it, go to Twitter, Caroline Russell. She's the only Green council member in Islington. Jeremy Corbyn at the moment is actually campaigning against her. But yes, she has the tweet actually pinned on the top, so you would be able to actually find it, follow the link, and answer that consultation. Then hopefully we can actually expand the low emission zone. Okay, and after the shops, I've actually run shops, a plumbing shop, and one thing I do know is that once your customer gets a ticket, they're not coming back. And I've noticed the same. There's too many charity shops, there's too many coffee shops, and there's no variety. Unfortunately, what's happened, as other people have actually said, the high street is changing. I go to Camden Town and it's like all franchises. The same thing. I used to run a plumbing shop, but at the same time, because there's no parking, people just end up going to the big shops. Screwfix, Travis Perkins, they go to New Southgate. That money doesn't actually stay in Barnet, that ends up in a tax haven somewhere, which is actually not actually helping the local community. As for the Capita Carillion, I would actually bring it back in-house, but I would prefer to make it cooperatives, local tradesmen in Barnet to actually form local cooperatives and actually bid for the things that needs to be done. It shouldn't be a case of calling Coventry to actually have something done in Barnet. That's actually a ridiculous situation. That's all I have now. Thank you.
You want to reply, David?
Yeah, certainly. Right, Bull Theatre, that's actually a secondary school. The Bull Theatre is a secondary school, and it's only when it closes in the evening at 5 p.m. that Susie Earnshaw is actually working incredibly hard to build a repertory theatre company and to book productions on and to bring people in. And you'll have noticed there are lots of events there on a Saturday night. The Silencers were there the other week and doing a great job. In terms of markets, the car park has closed, but it still opens for the market, I believe, and it will move to outside Waitrose using the bandstand, and possibly even, hopefully, when we work out who owns the land, using the mole hill on the other side, the little whatever it's called. But we have to work out who owns the land first.
What land?
Outsourced. You're all very keen to insource, and that's fine. But the outsourcing contract saves £1 million per month. So in Coventry, it's a phone centre, and they redirect your calls and a few other things. But it's all phone based, and then they redirect them back to Barnet. They don't actually solve problems from Coventry. And if you spend £1 million a month, and like Labour have said that they can bring it back in house, other people seem to think they can bring it back in house. Fine. But you will have to add 4% onto your council tax because it was costing Barnet £1 million to produce the same service. So that's £12 million per year. And can I just add one last thing? Before you all start shouting at me? Labour voted for this contract, and to put you clear, Labour had full sight of that contract, and exactly the same as the Conservative councillors, they had the opportunity and did go and read the contract, because I was in there at the same time with Councillor Rawlings. So to say they didn't have view of the contract is actually a lie. Well, no, you don't give out the copies, you allow people to look at them.
How many files was it?
QE Girls, I can assure you that QE Girls will miss the rental income. I don't believe any school has got so much money that they can turn down the rental income. I don't know the exact reasons as to why they're not, but we can certainly look into that. But I would have thought any school needed the money, so I can't imagine that's why they're doing that. In terms of the library, it is about to increase its hours. It's about to change, and it has got more books than it ever had before. Big deal as well. But if you want a Labour council, go to Brent. They closed half their libraries. You want to go to Lancashire Council, they closed 28 libraries. So that's what happens. In terms of the comment that it was £14 million to make the change, that's not strictly true. It does say £14 million in the papers, but that's because we built 2 libraries. We actually built 2 libraries. And that's where the money comes from. Okay? So, the new leisure centre is a £15 million investment. The church farm pool won't close before the new one opens. The teenage market is fantastic work from Bob Burstow, who's the secretary to the town team, and he's done an enormous amount of work to get this to fruition, and I hope that everybody can support it because it's a fantastic initiative and it will last throughout the summer. And also, as well, as the market moves to its new site, I have been working with the officers to make sure the market is designated as a market site and not just part of the spires, so that it affords it some protection should anybody wish to then sell it on as a different piece of land. Well, the historic site went years ago. That was a long time ago, because the current site was not the historic site, because there was one before the one that closed down. And if you want to know about planning, and yeah, you can say you want to bring planners back in-house, but you can't restrict planners to living in Barnet. So when, I don't know who, if anybody saw us, we were out in Hadley Home with residents. None of the planners lived locally. None of them actually knew what they were doing in terms of what the local feeling was, and they were all based in Barnet. So it is difficult, but the law is such that we can't say, right, only people who live in Barnet can apply. That's restrictive practice and is not legal. So that's why you end up with... Well, you said that you wanted people in Barnet, but I can assure you now, not everybody in Barnet knows how Barnet operates or how Barnet works. You don't, because if someone's got a job from Croydon, they will not know how Barnet operates. And this is actually a true story. I was on the phone to a planner, and I said that there was an issue with the spires, and he said, and remember the planner works at Barnet House, and he said, where's the spires? So it does happen that people don't know. They need to be educated. And they do try to educate people in Coventry, and the same way they try to educate them in Barnet. So that is actually how it works. Thank you.
Well, we've had a tremendous evening. It's a credit to Barnet that we've had so many questions and that we've had so many candidates answering our questions. And I'd like to say thank you to the candidates, and I'd like to say, I beg your pardon? No, I'm sorry. Labour had three goes at a response. We have to move on, but I wanted to thank everybody for coming and to say that there are lots of sandwiches at the end of the room, and we do hope you'll have a sandwich. And I want to hand over. Yes, I'm sorry, Robin. And I want to hand back to Robin to conclude the proceedings.
I have two messages for the candidates. If you're lucky enough to take office in May, please consult us properly. We've too often lately been either ignored, insufficiently informed, or restricted to commenting on matters that seem to have been already decided. Secondly, let's have a new local plan for Barnet that strikes a sensible balance between protecting the best of what we've got and recognising that some change is inevitable. Let's not leave it to the Mayor of London or the developers. The Barnet Society looks forward to participating in this process. I'm afraid we've now got a general meeting of the Barnet Society. It's already running 7 minutes late, and we have to halt. I'd just like to hand over to our President, Aubrey Rose, who will say a final thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Yes. How unfortunate for you. Well, what I can say is this. I'm privileged and proud to be President of this splendid society, this Barnet Society, who has organised this marvellous meeting tonight. It's a great credit to them that there has been such a wonderful attendance, and both of members of the audience and those at the table here. So it really has been a great pleasure. I'd like to say just one or 2 points. Did you know that Barnet produced the founder of the World Hospice Movement? Dame Cicely Saunders was brought up in this area. And now we will shortly have a children's hospice in this particular area. So we can support that as much as we can. As far as the High Street is concerned, and the gentleman right at the end, my daughter holds a prominent position in TfL, which stands for Transport for London, and she took me through Barnet High Street and Central Barnet, made about 20 recommendations for change. So if you can get hold of my daughter, you will get quite a few more things as well on that. But my particular point of my standing here is to thank everybody for coming tonight, for contributing so many positive comments and creative comments as to changes, as to concern. My main concern, like the gentleman right at the end, is the increased volume of traffic and its effect. I am a non-political person. I belong to no political party. I admire all the 13 gentlemen and ladies of the political parties here, including the independent, most independent, and I'd like to thank them very much for the manner in which they have dealt with different issues, even though they have very different views on those particular issues. And that is really a tribute to the democracy we have in this country, that we could all hold different views yet sit together like this and give our particular emphasis on different aspects. We are very fortunate to live in Barnet, so thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, for coming. And thank you, Barnet Society, Nick and Robin particularly for what they have done tonight, and all the members of the committee and council who are here, and so on. And I say, what a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.